Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third/fourth stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So today I really just want to kind of answer one of the very common questions I've kind of been seeing all around. This is really just dedicated to anyone that's from a state that sadly had to already lose unemployment, but especially if maybe you happen to be from a state that has lost unemployment but currently does not have a lawsuit that's currently there, or maybe you do have a lawsuit but you're just currently curious in hearing about how the general system works, or if you do end up filing a lawsuit in the future. Today's update is really going to be talking about how to actually physically file a lawsuit in your particular state if you come from a state that does not currently have a lawsuit open. Now, I do want to notice is that there will be a lot of variation because different states have different laws and different states also have different logistics or the ease of how their legal court situation works. However, everything that I'm going to tell you in today's video is purely based off of what other states that have already filed lawsuit currently have done or already did, some of which worked and already did win their unemployment. So that is the really great news. So this is all from actual observation. A huge disclaimer is that I'm not a lawyer, so everything right now is just basically just from observing what other states have currently done and what has worked based off of actual real life practical experience and observation. So in a way, it's at least still legit compared to like a law class where you're learning about the theory to doing a certain something without actually doing that something. In today's update, everything is just from actual legitimate stories of what other people have done. So we're going to talk all about that in today's video, but maybe real fast as always before we jump into it is that remember to smash the like button because it is always greatly appreciated if you guys enjoy videos like this. To share support, consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, or any possible information that you might have about honestly just really anything. So with that being said, let's get this video rolling right on the spot. So when it comes to trying to open up a lawsuit in your particular state, maybe a huge thing to start is that if you are able to potentially go into trying to open this lawsuit with a group of people, the larger the number, it will probably be a lot better. Now with that being said is that there are states where there have been people that have opened a lawsuit as just basically just an individual. That's kind of why sometimes you see in some states where there's sometimes a small group of just like 2 or 3 people that literally just manage to sue the state, and other states you have basically a group of a mob of people, of maybe just several hundreds of people, basically decide to open the lawsuit and band together to do it. But the idea is that the first step that you really want to do is that you really want to just start by finding a lawyer. Basically like any other typical lawsuit case that you might have, whether this is about something with unemployment, but even other things such as like whether this has to do with like social, crime, I don't know, all sorts of, financial, there's all sorts of different lawyers out there. The big thing is that you're trying to find a lawyer that focuses a lot on things related to state and civil cases. However, if say for example you don't necessarily know a lawyer that focuses on that, what you can technically do is that technically you can actually just find honestly almost any reasonable lawyer that has general background on the law in your particular state, and you can kind of ask them, and many of them are able to even give you some kind of free consulting service, or at the very least a phone call where you can really just ask them about who they or if they are able to potentially do this. And if they are not the lawyer to do this, what they can do is that they can potentially introduce you to an actual lawyer that is focused on cases like this. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a specific lawyer. For example, in the state of Ohio, the law firm that started the lawsuit in Ohio goes by the name of Dan Law, D-A-N-N Law, as most of you guys know if you guys have been here for a while. But what a lot of people interestingly don't know is that Dan Law actually is not even necessarily a lawyer that's actually focused on state cases. He's actually a lawyer, or rather they, because it's a firm, they're actually a law firm that's actually focused on things related to like foreclosure, finances, loans, housing, lease. So in a lot of ways, their law firm actually doesn't even have anything to do with unemployment. It actually has to do with things like financial related situations, which I guess it does connect to lawyers, which I guess it does connect to unemployment. So the idea is that a lot of times different lawyers can take on your case, and if the lawyer that you are talking to is not able to take on your case, there is a chance that they can maybe introduce you to another lawyer that maybe and hopefully will be able to take on the case. Now, The next thing is that a very, very common question is what happens if, let's say, for example, you don't actually have the money to pay for the lawyer? And it's a very common question because I do know that obviously if we are going through some kind of financial difficulty and tightness, we probably don't have money for a lawyer, or we probably don't have the funding to afford a lawyer, then the best thing to really do from here is that there are actually also a lot of states that have some kind of non-profit or even free legal aid support consulting service of some kind. This is actually what exactly a lot of people in Arkansas actually managed to do. There were actually a lot of people in Arkansas that when they were trying to open up their lawsuit, and it actually ended up working. As most of you guys know, is a huge congrats, by the way, is that Arkansas was one of the most recent states that managed to officially win their unemployment back. Obviously they are going through a little bit of a difficulty managing the logistics, but that's kind of something else. But the idea is that whatever they did, certainly compared to a lot of states, it worked. So the big thing is that if you were to go onto Google and just enter into your state, now keep in mind again, this doesn't apply to every state because different states, again as mentioned, have different resources, but I can certainly comment that that's actually what Arkansas did, and there are also a lot of other states that if you were to just essentially input your state and just put in free legal aid or free law services, anything along those lines, you may be able to find a lawyer, or even non-profit legal support, you may be able to find a lawyer that can potentially at least give you advice. So we don't know if they're going to be able to take on your case. In Arkansas, they did actually take on the case, but at the very least, I think you can at least get information. And if this really is like an urgent situation to try to fight to bring back unemployment at this time, then I think it is something to maybe consider at least trying to take some initiative to at least learning about. At the very least, I think it's also maybe great for maybe just educational reasons anyway, at the end of the day, and also for protection if you end up having to do something similar or do anything related to the legal aid law world into the future, to basically just know about the general idea to how it really works. And once you are maybe able to talk to a lawyer and finally get the general advice and steps about what to do, maybe two other potential tips that you can look into is, one is that try to see if you can try to form and create a group in order to sue the state together. Because a lot of times, and there is a lot of truth in the saying that, you know, the strength in numbers kind of story is that if you are able to find a group of people together to do it with, it always does make things a lot easier, and also so that you guys can kind of help each other and get advice and knowledge from one another. Examples of places where you can find people is that there are many different social circles. There are Facebook groups, there are internet forums, there's also a lot of industry related circles that you can maybe approach. So for example is that when the pandemic started and the lockdown happened, there were a lot of industries that shut down in its entirety. If you happen to work in anything, for example, like hospitality, travel, events, no one was traveling, no one was doing a lot of things. And I feel it also because I also do happen to work in the events industry, funny enough. I work in the events and film industry. So there are still a lot of industries to this day that still haven't actually fully recovered. So if you were to find a networking circle within that particular industry, you may be able to find a lot of people that also happen to be unemployed to maybe do it with. You guys can feel free to kind of just share information among one another, because I think everyone always greatly appreciates the support at the end of the day. And probably the second advice is also to really just observe what a lot of the other states have been doing. That's kind of why also, as I've kind of recommended, is that even if your state, as kind of like we've said in past videos, is not a state that currently has a lawsuit open, by just knowing what other states have done, it can hopefully become inspiration for more states to follow. And so far, it actually has been in the last two states. For example, in Louisiana, in Arkansas, and Tennessee, they were finally able to open up their lawsuit when they were able to learn what Indiana did and actually worked for Indiana, that they finally got the inspiration to try to at least do the same thing as well. But once you are able to maybe collect the people, or if you wanted to, you can just file as a small group, because again, there are people, once again, that file as a large group, and there's also people that file a lawsuit as just like an individual. You know, that's why you hear stories about like just a family doing the same exact lawsuit where they just have about like 2 or 3 couple of people. But the idea is that once you are able to gather up your people, once you are able to find a lawyer, once you are able to consult and talk to the lawyer about the best course of action, then from there, it's really to work with your lawyer in order to try to approach and open up a lawsuit with your particular state, with the court system that's there, and then try to schedule in the hearing, and then to just really just hope for the best and really go from here. But I figured this is probably the general idea about how to actually get the lawsuit started if you happen to be from a state that hasn't opened a lawsuit yet, or you're just really interested in what other states have done to maybe use as inspiration for what you can potentially hopefully do as well. Of course, it is much harder depending on your state to physically do than to physically explain how to do, especially because some states are a little bit more strict, some states are a little bit more, there's a little bit less resources out there. For example, finding legal aid service, finding, funding it on the financial level. Some states or some people in other states have started a fundraiser to raise money for this. So there's a little bit of variation between different states, but I figured that's probably the general idea of what would apply to the most number of states outside throughout our country. So if you guys maybe found something insightful, that's pretty much what I really wanted to share in today's update. Maybe consider smashing the like button. It's always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing for similar videos like this. If you guys are brand new here, welcome. Always great to have new people. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, or honestly just anything at all. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.